Chapter 1. The Mysterious Encounter. The rain was relentless that night, a torrential downpour sweeping through the streets of New Haven, a city that had once been a bustling center of trade, but now felt hollow and empty. It was nearing midnight, and I was just wrapping up my shift at the local tech hub. I had a long walk home ahead of me, and the streets were mostly deserted, save for a few scattered figures seeking shelter from the storm. As I cut through a quieter alley, I heard a soft sound, almost like a whimper, coming from a darkened corner. I stopped, my heart suddenly racing. It wasn't uncommon to hear strange noises in the city, but something about this sound felt different. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to investigate. There, huddled against the wall, was a figure, slumped and shaking from the cold, her clothes soaked through. She was unlike anyone I had ever seen before. Her skin was a deep shade of blue, almost luminescent, with faint patterns of glowing marks along her arms and face. Her hair was silver and seemed to shimmer even in the dim light, like it had been dipped in stardust. Her eyes, large, round, and a radiant violet, glowed softly in the darkness. She was clearly an alien, but my mind couldn't quite place her species. What struck me the most, though, was the raw vulnerability in her posture. She was shivering uncontrollably, drenched by the rain, clearly unable to protect herself from the harsh weather. Without thinking, I approached her. "Hey, are you all right?" I asked, crouching beside her. She flinched at my voice, but didn't pull away. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with confusion, before managing to speak in a voice that was both soft and strangely melodic. I'm cold," she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm lost." I didn't know what came over me, but I knew I couldn't leave her there. She looked completely out of place, and something told me that she wasn't from this planet, or any planet I had ever known. "Come with me," I said, offering her my jacket. "I have a place nearby. You can warm up there." The alien girl stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to process my words. Then slowly she nodded. "Thank you." Chapter 2. A Stranger's Home. I helped her to her feet, and we walked in silence through the stormy streets. She didn't seem to have any intention of speaking more, and I didn't press her. There was something about her presence, fragile yet strong, that made me hesitant to ask too many questions. I just wanted to get her out of the rain. When we reached my small apartment, I quickly led her inside, glad to finally be out of the storm. I set her down on the couch, grabbed a towel, and offered her some dry clothes. She accepted them without a word, her violet eyes still distant. I had no idea what I was doing. She was an alien, a creature from beyond the stars. Yet here I was, inviting her into my home. The practical side of my brain was screaming at me, asking if this was a mistake, but I pushed it aside. Something inside me told me that she needed help, and I was the one there to offer it. I went to make some tea, trying to give her space, but she followed me into the kitchen. She stood there in silence, watching me. "Do you have a name?" I asked, glancing over my shoulder at her. "I am Elara," she replied, her voice soft yet confident. "I don't know how I ended up here." Her words hit me harder than I expected. It was one thing to help someone stranded, but her lack of understanding about how she had gotten here made me realize just how vulnerable she was. I didn't have much to offer, but at least she wouldn't be alone anymore. I turned back to the counter, handing her a cup of tea. She accepted it, but her eyes remained distant, like she was lost in thought. The silence between us grew heavy, and I finally decided to break it. "I don't know much about your people, Elara," I said, sitting down across from her, "but you seem different. What happened to you?" Elara's violet eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of something deep within them, something hidden. She hesitated before speaking, her words slow and deliberate. "My ship was damaged," she said quietly. I was part of an expedition, exploring new planets, but we were attacked. My crew, they didn't survive. I've been drifting for days, trying to get somewhere safe, but I lost my way. I could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of the loss she had suffered. She was far from home, with no way to return, and no one to help her. My heart ached for her, and I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. She wasn't just a stranger to me anymore. She was someone in need of help, someone I could help. Chapter 3: The Unexpected Gift. The next few days were spent helping Elara recover. I provided her with food, shelter, and medical attention for the minor injuries she had sustained during her crash. She told me more about her people, how they were a peaceful race, dedicated to exploring and understanding the universe. But her words were often laced with sorrow, and I could sense that she missed her home terribly. Despite her clear distress, she seemed to be growing more comfortable in my presence. She spoke less about her past and more about the small things. Her love for stargazing, her fascination with Earth's landscapes, and her quiet admiration for the simple things in life that she hadn't been able to experience in years. As the days passed, something changed between us. I began to notice how Elara's presence affected me, how her gentleness and quiet strength made me want to protect her, to keep her safe. She had become an anchor in my life, and I realized I was becoming more than just her caretaker. Then, one evening, after a quiet dinner together, Elara looked at me, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "You saved me, and I owe you everything. But I have something to offer you in return." I was confused. "You don't owe me anything, Elara. I'm just happy to help." But she shook her head. "You saved me when no one else would. And in return, I offer you something, a bond." I watched as she slowly approached me, her eyes full of a quiet intensity. Before I could react, she gently placed her hand on my chest, and suddenly I felt something like an energy, a warmth, coursing through me. It wasn't just physical. It was as though she was sharing a part of herself, something deep and ancient. It was the kind of connection that transcended species, language, and understanding. It was a bond that went beyond gratitude. "I offer you my heart," she said softly. "You gave me my life back. Now I give you Chapter 4: A New Beginning. From that moment on, Elara and I shared something unique, something that couldn't be explained by words or logic. We didn't know what the future held, but we knew that we were bound together by something much deeper than mere chance. In the quiet days that followed, our relationship deepened into something neither of us could have foreseen. We began to build a life together, a life that was equal parts wonder and uncertainty. I knew that one day we would have to face the reality of her return home, of what it meant to be a stranger in a world that wasn't her own. But for now, we were content to be together, two beings from different worlds, finding comfort and connection in the most unexpected of places. And though we were worlds apart, in that quiet, rainy evening, I realized that sometimes the most profound moments come when we least expect them. Elara hadn't just come to me for shelter. She had come to teach me that love, trust, and connection are universal forces, ones that transcended all boundaries.